Now it's time for us to look at what the papers are reporting. First, let's go through what the paper says. The papers actually say the Nation newspaper, government guards for forest to dislodge terrorist bandits, thousands to be hired, trained, equipped. CDS were deploying fresh strategies. Next is Leadership Friday. Tinubu takes war to terrorists in the bush. This Nigeria talks about the voting situation in the country. Voter apathy, reps canvass compulsory adult voting, as well as Daily Independent saying reps to make voting compulsory for Nigerians to probe technical glitch behind 2025 UTME. Nigeria News Direct. Nigeria's inflation rate dips to 23.71%. That's according to NBS, encouraging, but risks still loom. That's according to experts. Blueprints goes towards the same line. NBS report, food prices ease by 0.12% as inflation drops to 23.71%, says significant decrease experienced April. We Can Hope talks about, has an investigative reporting on food crisis, which might loom nationwide over climate change as farmers lament prolonged drought for poor harvest. Platform Times speaks sport. 15,000 athletes hit Ogun for sports festival as protests rock host state. Etoma, Veronica, let's get talking on this, and I believe that we'll have a lively debate over some of these very interesting, highlights that the newspapers are bringing up. The Nation newspaper, as well as the Leadership Friday, looks at the president taking the war not just in Aso Rock or other suburbs, so he's taking it into the bushes by inaugurating by talking about armed guards or forest guards. 1,129 of them that we have spread across the nation. You feel that's a good one?
It's a good idea, but 1,000, a little bit above 1,000 isn't enough to cover the forest of Nigeria.
No, talking about the forest that we have.
Oh, the forest that we have. Okay. Yes, the idea is good. The idea of having this forest guards is good. However, they will need training time. Training time should be nothing less than 6 months. Within those 6 months, a lot of havoc could have been committed by these terrorists or the people we are targeting. But the fact that the president is thinking of it, and it sounds as if he has made up his mind completely that this has to happen. It's encouraging. It also might serve as a deterrent or as a fuel, to escalate the activities of this people. It can work both ways. The thing I'm looking at is the training time for these forest guards. Yes, they'll be armed, and I'm asking, what kind of arms are they going to give to them? Our statutory security organizations like the police, the army, and the rest, have they been adequately armed already? So if we're going to take them as a test, I'm wondering the kind of arms that these forest guards will have. Those two things are my worry. But that we are thinking of doing that the president has said, look, we have to do this, it's a good idea. Veronica,
if you look at Sambisa Forest alone, is larger than so many local governments, and we have this forest spread across different geographical zones within the country. But he talked about arms. We won't be talking about then guns to face people who are wielding RPGs and even drones to talk about.
Well, that's the big question and issue here. Because, like you rightly pointed out, these persons have to even be a step ahead of those who are in the forest, taking advantage of the forest and carrying out their nefarious activities. So they have to be well equipped to be able to deal with these issues head on, and we get the results that we want to get at the end of the day. But beyond even equipping them with weapons, what is their welfare package and how do we intend to sustain it? Because we should pick lessons from how we have handled our security operatives who have had to complain about their welfare package, how it is that some of those issues are the ones ensuring that their morale is low and, it's not helping them, commit to fighting this war head on. So we need commitment from the forest guard and every person that will be involved at addressing our security issues. So it's important that we look at their welfare package. Who handles it? Is it the state? Are they ready to take up that responsibility? Because we've been mouthing state police all the while, and it is seeming like commitment from the governors is not forthcoming, even though they say they are on all fours with the president. But because of the commitment that is required, they are seemingly taking a step back or dragging their foot with regards to this matter. So I am hoping that we have a holistic approach at ensuring that these persons are equipped, encouraged to deliver on what they have to do, so that they will not become part of those we are trying to fight out of the forest.
Which is quite possible. Which is quite possible too.
So moving on to what this Nigeria as well as Daily Independent talked about, I do not know when last you guys actually voted, but you guys might be found wanting.
I'm always at work. If you are not at work, I'm always at work.
So, bill criminalizing non-participation in voting by eligible Nigerians scales second reading. So, Etoma, you need to brace up. Exercise a franchise.
When I heard it scales second reading, I said, wow, these guys are serious. How are they going to enforce it? How are they going to enforce it? Well, a lot of things have to be done before we can say. Moreover, do you need to make it mandatory for the people to come? If things are done right, if the people believe that when they vote, their vote will count, they will naturally come out and vote. The main issue about voter apathy is that the average Nigerian believes that his vote doesn't count. So let us make the vote count, and we will see Nigerians come out.
Are you also part of the average Nigerians that believe that votes don't count?
No, I'm talking on, look,
on
being here is an opportunity to talk on behalf of
course, because you feel their pulse.
Yes, I feel them. I live with them. I interact with them. I hear them. And an average Nigerian will tell you, what's the point?
But Veronica, so others will be saying that, well, you are still, attacking my fundamental right. It's my right to vote or not. But if you go to countries like Australia, it's mandatory that you vote, except you have genuine reasons. He talked about implementation. If you go to Luxembourg, Brazil, Belgium, they also have, very similar thing. But our voting infrastructure, gerrymandering, yes, and then places where people need to have access to voting. So do we not need to take care of that first before we begin?
You see, we like to borrow ideas without looking at our peculiarities.
Exactly.
Because if you are to domesticate these kind of ideas that perhaps you have borrowed based on what you have said, that other countries are doing it, then we should look at what happened. Why are Nigerians not coming out to vote? Why are we having voter apathy? That should help us design the framework in such a way that you are not just compelling people to come and vote, but they are willing to vote, and then they have access to voting and the voting materials, and they feel safe to vote.
Feeling safe is also very good.
It's critical. It's critical.
But I think over the years we've had minimal, bloodshed during voting.
It's not about the bloodshed. It's the fact that leading up to elections, like we often talk about issues when we're analyzing elections, you see that there is some level of show of force. And people say if there are military people everywhere like this, if we see security agencies and all of them everywhere like this, unlike the regular days, then why let me just stay inside my house?
That should boost your confidence, except you have a sinister motive during the election.
Confidence of the average Nigerian. That is what we do not know. It does not.
It does not.
So
because of the relationship that they have had with security personnel. It is a relationship that has had issues in terms of trust over the years. So if they do not trust security agencies, a lot of them will not come. I'd rather stay in my house and watch what is going on. I'll read it on the pages of the newspapers or on social media and make analysis. So until we begin to give people reasons, a lot of people are also not educated on the power of voting. So I believe we should even begin from educating voters on why you should vote.
Especially
why it counts in a democracy, because you decide who your leader should be. Because when that leader gets there, 4 years of your life, especially if you did not contribute to the voting of that person, will be determined by, and so even if you grumble, nothing will change.
So it goes to show that it's a must. Not maybe it should not be under compulsion, but must within your own self that you should exercise a franchise, so that you'll be able to say, yes, we voted you in power, and when they realize
and
that
you can hold them to account.
You can hold them to account.
Right.
It's our duty. Nigerian News Direct, as well as Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint newspaper, and that of the other one that follows, talks about the inflation rate, which is now, simmered a bit. Nigeria's inflation rate dips to 23.71%. We talked about that. But I guess we all agree that we should approach this with cautious optimism.
Optimism. I know that's what you say.
Yes, we should. We should. It has not gotten to the point where it reflects directly on the table of the average Nigerian. So throwing the figures around to a whole lot of them, I mean, what's the difference? Yeah. Things are still difficult for me, but we need to educate them to know that, look, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. So if we are bringing down the inflation and with these baby steps, we should all just pray that whatever the government is doing to achieve this, they should sustain it and they should get better at it so that we can get to a single-digit inflation rate. When it gets to that point, it will reflect on your table. And
I think the central bank is meeting for the MPR meeting or MPC meeting, something like that, where they, look at the monetary policies they've implemented so far and, charting the way forward. What do we expect to see in the future, in the coming days?
Well, whatever decision they make would also reflect on our inflation as it is and how the economy then responds to this decision. They know over the years what the central bank has been trying to do is to stabilize the economy with all of its decisions at the MPR meetings. And so we are hoping that the step they take when they have that meeting would also reflect on our inflation. But over the years and over time, has that really reflected, especially at ensuring that there is a drop in our inflation? Not necessarily.
I think we're seeing it already.
Not necessarily. Yes, but the sustainability is not just short measures. We should start looking at long-term policies and plans. It is not just about today, because when we take these steps, and then are we ensuring that we are insulating ourselves against the shocks that could come, external shocks that could affect whatever decisions we say we are making. If you look at one of the papers, we're talking about climate change. And here we are celebrating, okay, we have something on the ground in terms of there's a drop in inflation. So let's look at a holistic approach at addressing these matters. Even the World Central Bank, I don't know why I keep calling them World Bank, Central Bank.
Yeah, they chimed into our inflationary, challenges and all of that.
Yeah.
So, right. So, but then relatedly, if you look at Weekend Hope, says, about investigation that now a nationwide food crisis looms over climate change as farmers lament prolonged drought, foresee poor harvest. Experts demand urgent intervention through irrigation overhaul. So we're talking about inflation, headline inflation, which impacts food, transportation, and all of that. But if you're now having climate, lurking on one side, trying to ambush us, then
it's not an ambush.
It's not an ambush.
Climate change is not an ambush.
No. Well, why I use the word ambush is we are celebrating yes, inflation is coming down, but there is an ambush somewhere which is lurking in the corner.
That's why I mentioned external shocks.
You see, thank God the information is coming out early. We have to change some of our farming practices. In the north, they do irrigation a whole lot, But in the south, because we have heavy rains and so on, we don't even think of irrigation. But now we're going to be hit by climate change according to that announcement. So maybe we should start looking at irrigation as a buffer in the south.
That's right.
That way the climate change can be doing its thing, and we are also producing enough food for the people. It's just the problem arises, there's a solution to it. In production, it is called the law of redundancy, where you take more than what you need, and you have a plan B.
Yeah, but this matter has always been with us. If you look at in 2012, we had heavy rainfalls, and since that time, we saw some states where we have farmlands, swallowed up by the rains. So climate change has always been with us. It is that we did not put long-term measures in place to addressing it. That's why I keep harping on long-term measures that can help us, insulate ourselves from any external shocks. We've seen some countries even introducing farming despite or in spite
That's right.
climate change.
That's right.
Can we do that in Nigeria?
Let's see if we can squeeze in this. Platform Times talks about 15,000 athletes hate Ogun for sports festival as protest rock host state. So there is a question about whether we are ready, the state is really ready, to host this, and the fact that a whole lot of people traveled from, all walks of life within the country, yes, to Ogun State in order to be the caterer, selling foods and all of that. But the contract had now been awarded to one university. It is Babcock University. They're about 500 million naira out of the 2.7 billion naira unnoticed. Uninformed, because they applied before coming to Ogun State. So they're protesting like, come on, why are you doing this to us?
But when they applied, were they told that, okay, the contract had been awarded to
It was just at a later time when they all arrived Ogun State.
Okay, so they had arrived. So
Yeah,
I guess
so
this
it's
is
more-
all
yeah.
a failure of planning on the part of the host state. And that is why these people have to protest, because so much monies have been channeled into preparation.
That's right.
I just hope that the state will be able to address all the issues, because it is good to see that they are trying to host a national sports festival, and they called it Ogun Games, or Gateway Games. Gateway Games. So a lot of people are coming into the state. This
That's
will
right.
boost business for the state, but then if your planning isn't right, then it's going to cause a problem, a lot of problem, and I hope they can handle it.
Well,
The idea of giving the contract to one person for food and all that, it's not sustainable. It can't work.
Because of the number of people
can't
coming?
work.
Yeah.
Yes, in my state, we do all this, a lot of crowd
At least
feeding
it
almost every
provides
year.
job
And
for
then
others,
we've noticed that people will buy what they want to buy. You can't force them to buy what you have. They will always want to buy what they want to buy.
variety
So,
of purposes.
so leave it open. Leave it open. Why give it to one person?
Perhaps
I just
they feel
hope they
that
can
the
settle
school
this.
can handle it, maybe, but you
as
should encourage,
ED cause.
encourage unity from
Right.
other persons from across the country.
Exactly. We hope the government will definitely, listen to them and see what they can do in order
Yes.
to help them all. Well, that's about it for the newspapers up for review this morning.